Well, that's it. First race of the season done. Australian Grand Prix 2026 is done. And what are you guys feeling about it? What are you guys feeling about it? Good race? Bad race? Fun racing? Or was it a bit predictable? I mean, it really doesn't matter. If you think it's boring and, you know, um, you know, you can't put comments in because F1 are censoring it apparently, but hey ho. Feel free to put comments down below. See if F1 will censor us this time. I don't know. Anyways, how was it? How was it? I got a comment about it, and obviously, look, I'm wearing the Ferrari top. I clearly have a preference, but how do I feel about it? I had so much fun watching it. So much fun. I mean, obviously Ferrari being there and having whatever they are doing in their race starts, which was absolutely electric and hilarious to see them basically doing Mario Kart mushroom from, like, was it 5th and 6th on the grid, and they ended up 1st and 3rd. Could have been 1st and 2nd if Hamilton hadn't gone on the grass. It was kind of nuts. And then we got this sort of like Russell would overtake, and then 2 corners later Leclerc would overtake, and I'd love to know your thoughts about it. Here's my thoughts about it. I loved it. Now, look, it can be seen as a bit of a gimmick, and understandably so, but there's a lot of overtakes that have been gimmicks, right? People talking about it being a gimmick is because of the boost and the push to overtake. And the push to pass, the fact that it's a little thing that drivers have been given that makes their cars faster, that means that they can overtake. That's been around since the 80s and 90s. And we had fun overtakes then. How do we know which ones were push to pass and which ones weren't? And if I was to base it off my pure reaction, I was loving every minute. Because ultimately, yes, it makes the car faster, but there's still defending that needs to be done. There was still times when Charles Leclerc was defending like nothing else. For example, Sergio Perez was being robust and aggressive with the defending. You kind of want it to be that way. This is the best way of describing it is you don't want it to be an overtake that's like a motorway pass. Like an overtake at Spa, Belgium, where the straight is 3 miles long. But you want it to be easy enough that makes it a challenge to defend. You don't want to make it impossible to defend, but you don't want to make it impossible to overtake either. And I think, okay, it might be pushing a little bit towards the simple side of things, but it's not full on. I was having fun every single time, and it's not just the fact that there was the fighting going on. There's the strategy as well. Because while Charles Leclerc and George Russell was fighting, they were losing time, hand over fist to Kimi Antonelli, to Lewis Hamilton. And Hamilton and Antonelli were sort of holding back, and there could be this sort of patient waiting game where different drivers emerge out of it. And I was really loving it, right? Is it a bit like a computer game? Maybe. But is that such a bad thing? Really? I had so much fun watching it, and I get that the qualifying wasn't fun, right? The drivers weren't fully pushing because of the battery levels, but that's fine. We can obviously deal, that'll work it out in time. And I think obviously we're basing it off just off Mercedes, but I think there was some that were doing okay with it. So yeah, I'm kind of happy with it. We'll see how it goes. We've obviously got the Chinese Grand Prix coming up this weekend with the sprint race weekend, and China is probably a good tester actually to see whether it's a bit gimmicky or not, because ultimately China does have a really long straight and some tight twisty curves. If we start getting overtakes round the really tight twisty bends, for example the first 2 corners, we are in for a treat this year, just to enjoy the overtakes, right? Can't have it all the time. You can't have it all your way. And actually, this does feel like a more fun part of the season. So I'm going to give it like that. I want to also, kind of follow a similar sort of script to what I did last year. You know, when we did like a sort of, understated or underrated winner, let's say, out of the season. Kind of difficult though, because the driver that I loved watching ended up being the driver that everyone else ended up talking about anyway. This freaking guy, Arvid Lindblad. And my thing has already had a bit of fun here. Let me just quickly just expand. Bear with me a second. But yeah, like Arvid Lindblad. Again, let me just quickly do a 50, I think. I could do 100. Yeah, there we go. There we go. So yeah, Arvid Lindblad absolutely was incredible, absolutely incredible for RB. And I think the thing I liked about it was this guy weren't messing around. He qualified well, great, tick off the box. But all the other drivers have been able to qualify well in the Red Bull family. And there is this sort of feeling of hierarchy. I mean, this guy made Liam Lawson look terrible, right? Made Liam Lawson look absolutely awful. But it's the fact that he wasn't afraid of mixing it with Verstappen. Wasn't afraid of mixing it with Hadjar either. It's a nice little battle that's going on between them. And this guy feels like he's here to stay. Let me explain fully here, right? The last time I've seen a driver on his first race do moves that audacious was probably Lewis Hamilton in 2007. Yes, it's been that long. When he didn't mess around, he was giving Alonso some grief, giving Raikkonen some grief, giving Massa some grief. That sort of thing of, I don't care about the hierarchy, I'm just here to be a brilliant driver. That's the kind of attitude you want to see in a driver, and I think it's great to see that he's having fun. I think this guy could be quite special. So yeah, watch this space for Arvid Lindblad, because this is last year I was hyping up Isaac Hadjar, despite and just looking out for him because obviously the first race that happened. But this is one of those where I had my eyes open. I was like, oh, this guy could be good. Now, don't get me wrong, he's probably going to make mistakes. Every driver makes mistakes, but he got points on his first race. He deserved those points in the first race. So, yeah, fair play to him. Fair play to him on that. So the last thing to talk about is really what happened at the front. This Mercedes-Ferrari battle that is going on. I mean, we all thought Mercedes would absolutely walk it this season. I'm not so sure about it, right? So if we were to consider the race, Mercedes and Ferrari, when it came to race pace, they were on similar footing, right? The one thing that Mercedes got right was the strategy. And can I defend Ferrari a little bit here? There's a few people that have been commenting on Ferrari's strategy. And I get it, right? It's one of those where they were clearly on the worst strategy. But I'm not so sure it was that much of a clown move. Let me explain what I mean. So that safety car came out when Isaac Hadjar's engine blew up, right? And this is the first race of new regulations, especially new engine regulations, where reliability is at a premium. Yeah, we saw it, right? Yes, Aston Martin is another kettle of fish with regards to Alonso and with regards to Stroll. But, ultimately, all the engines are risky. Red Bull have brand new powertrains. We've got Aston Martin, who have brand new engines. We have Audi coming to the sport, have their own engines. Cadillac have brand new cars. All these things mean that they have ultimately untested engines. Williams is another good example, but that's more in terms of pace. But you've got a situation where any one of those cars could have gone back, right? And Isaac Hadjar, was it like the 13th lap, I think it was, that the engine cut out, where the VSC came out? So there was a chance that it could have happened to the other Red Bull car. Could have happened to Verstappen's. Like I say, there was a chance where it came to Cadillac, and it did happen to Bottas. And we'll talk about Bottas in a little bit, because that was an interesting incident. And then you had the situation where Alonso and Stroll were going in and out of the pits all the time, basically using the racing as a glorified practice session. So ultimately, you had retirements that made it so that there could have been another VSC, another safety car, another opportunity for Ferrari to pit with less impact. And then we had the situation with Bottas. Now, Bottas went off, was it lap 22, 23, something like that? That was a better time to pit than Isaac Hadjar's one. If Ferrari had had their way, that VSC would have come out about 10 seconds beforehand. Bottas would have gone off about 10 seconds beforehand. They would have both pitted, and yes, it might have been a little bit behind Mercedes, but they would have had much, much, much fresher tyres, and within impact range, let's say, to attack. Unfortunately for them, Bottas went off just as they had passed the pit lane entrance, and then by the time he was being wheeled in, that blocked the pit entry. So guess what? They had to close the pits. So Ferrari had no chance. Can't predict stuff like that. And ultimately, that's the thing that probably messed up Ferrari more than anything else. If we're actually basing off it, the perfect time to pit would have been Bottas's off, not Isaac Hadjar's. So I think they just got messed around. I think there was a lot of overthinking. They got messed around. They'll learn from it. It's not going to happen that often. It's going to happen more often at the start, but even itself out. We're going to see Ferrari do better. We are going to see Ferrari do better. And just as a side point, I was worried about Hamilton last year. Hamilton looks fit and firing this year. He was doing his strategy, of course, but he looked aggressive at the start. He could have been second by the first corner as well. He could have been good. There's something there. And ultimately, I will say this as well, because there was other people that was also talking about Hamilton's communication with Ferrari and the fact that, he's fed up with Ferrari already. No. It's one race, right? Vettel had a go at Ferrari as well. Even drivers that have done well will have a go at Ferrari at some point. And the important thing was the engineer's reaction. And yes, there was some where the engineer was clearly reading off a script or off plan A and everything like that. But those last, 7 laps? Where it was 7 laps, yes. Because Ferrari engineer said to Lewis, 7 laps to go. You've got this. Go and get it. And you could see that it had fired Hamilton up. Yes, he went, leave me to it. But he said, cheers, thanks for that. Leave me to it. They've got the engineer right, potentially. and it's just working alongside each other. And as long as Ferrari give Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton the respect they need during the race, I think we could be in for an absolute banger. Of course, we could end up with a repeat of 2022, where Ferrari looked this promising and they end up absolutely bottling it. But ultimately, Mercedes are looking good, right? This is not the case that Ferrari have the better car and it's their strategy mess up that's gonna do it. It's Mercedes have just about got the edge, but it's not as far away as we thought. And ultimately, if we're basing it off experience, Ferrari have a more experienced lineup than Mercedes. And that could work in their advantage. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the Australian Grand Prix. We've got the Chinese Grand Prix coming up. I think it's this weekend as well. That's going to be fun. We've got sprint races. Yeah, at the time we need as much practice as possible. We've actually got one practice session this time. It's going to be madness. I am looking forward to it. Hope you guys are looking forward to it. And until next time, guys, all I have to say is, don't forget to like, subscribe, do everything you need to do and want to do, and leave comments on your thoughts on the Australian Grand Prix. And until next time, guys, take care.